Good day, everyone. My name is Yashmil John Eben Danilio, and right now I will going to discuss to you the institutional correction. So, wait. Lesson 4. The Bureau of Corrections RA 10575, Security and Control of Prisoners, Care and Treatment of Prisoners, Release of Prisoners, Good Conduct Time Allowance, GTRG, CTA, Prohibited Act subjects to disciplinary actions, treatment of special needs or unusual offenders, privileges of detainees and sentenced prisoners, the Regional Rehabilitation Centers for Youth, the Child and Youth Welfare Code, Custody, BGMP, Republic Act, Treatment of Special Needs or Unusual Offenders, the Death Row. So, let's move on to the Bureau of Corrections RA 10575. So, what is B What is Bureau of Corrections? So, Bureau of Corrections is an agency under the Department of Justice that is charged with custody and rehabilitation of national offenders, that is, those sentenced to term for imprisonment for more than 3 years. So, the Bureau of Corrections means that it is the under of the DOJ, which it is the custody or rehabilitation for the offenders who sentenced for the imprisonment for 3 years. So to carry out this mandate, Bureau undertakes the following: confine the pris- persons convicted by the courts to serve a sentence in national prisons. Second, keep prisoners from committing crimes while in custody. Third, provide humane treatment by supplying the inmates basic needs and implementing a variety of rehabilitation programs designed to change their pattern of criminal of anti-behavior, engage in agro-industrial projects for the purpose of developing prison lands and resources into productive bases or profit centers, developing and employing inmate manpower skills and labor, providing prisoners with a source of income, and augmenting the Bureau's yearly appropriations. So next slide. So what is the Republic Act number 10575? So this act is an act strengthening the Bureau of Corrections or BUCOR and providing funds thereof. This act with the consolidation of House Bill number 6887, the Senate Bill number 3335 was finally passed by the House of Representatives and the Senate on February 5, 2013 and February 6, 2013 respectively. Being enacted by the Senate of House of Representatives of the Philippines in Congress assembled. Section 1. So, this act shall be known as the Bureau of Corrections Act of 2013. So, in the Section 2, this is the declaration of the policy. So, it is the policy of the state to promote the general welfare and safeguard the basic rights of every prisoner incarcerated in our national penitentiary. So, in the declaration of policy, there was a policy created inside the jail to safeguard the basic rights of every prisoners. So, it was also recognized the responsibility of the state to strengthen government capability aimed towards the institutionalization of highly efficient and competent correctional services. So, let's move on to the section 3, the definition of terms. So, first is the safekeeping. So, what is safekeeping? So, safekeeping is the custodial component of the Bucors present correction systems shall refer this act to ensure the public, including families, inmates, and their victims, the national inmates, are provided with their basic needs, completely incarcerated from further committing criminal acts and have been totally cut off their criminal networks or contacts with free society while serving sentence inside the premises in national penitentiary. Yeah. So safekeeping means that in the Bureau of Corrections there is precautionary measures or there is a things provided inside the jail, like basic needs and other things to be done inside the jail. So B is the reformation. So which is the reformation means that it is the rehabilitation component of the Bucharest present correction systems shall refer to acts to ensure the public, including families, inmates, and their victims. The release national inmates are no longer harmful to the community by becoming reformed individuals prepared life normal and productive life upon reintegration to the mainstream society. So the section 4. Section 4 is mandate the Bureau of Corrections. The Bureau shall be discharged of safekeeping and instituting reformation programs to national inmates sentenced more than 3 years. So, safekeeping of national inmates. So, the safekeeping of inmates shall include the decent provision of quarters, food, clothing, appliances with established United Nations standards. So, in the safekeeping in national inmates, so in the safekeeper, so the prisoners inside have these basic needs. Example is that the food, the water, and clothing. So it is necessary that the prisoners have this so that they could mm, survive in the prison. So B. Reformation of national inmates. So the reformation program which is instituted by the Bucor for the inmates shall be following: moral and spiritual programs, education and training program. Third is the work and livelihood program. So the reformation is it is an activity inside a jail in the Bureau of Corrections, which is this: the three, the moral and spiritual program, education, and the work livelihood program. So also sports and recreational program, health and welfare program, and behavior verification program to include the therapeutic community. So, in section 5, so operations of the Bureau of Corrections. A. The Bucor shall operate with a directorial structure. It shall undertake reception of inmates through the Directorate of Reception and Diagnostics DRD, formerly Reception and Diagnostic Center RDC, provide basic needs and security through its security and operation directorates, administrative and reformation program through its reformation directorates, and prepare inmates for reintegration to mainstream society, which is Directorate for External Relations, formerly External Relations Division ERD. So the DRD shall be responsible of conduct of classifications of every inmate admitted to Bucor, and inmates shall be classified accordingly to the security risk and sentence. So aside from those born of the provisions under Rule 8, Part 1, Rules of General Application of United Nations Standards, Minimum Rules for the Treatment of Prisoners, and that is the existing regulation of Bucor on society classification, maximum, medium, and minimum security risk. So from the DRD, the custodial force and reformation personnel of respective security institutes or camps shall be charged for the security and the implementation of recommended inmate reformation program of each every inmate while serving sentence respectively. E is the Directorate for External Relations DER shall be responsible for pre-release and post-release programs of inmates due to for release. The DER shall also classify inmates according to skills acquired for referral and endorsement to appropriate companies or corporations participating in the Bucor or on-the-job training programs for newly reformed inmates. So, F is apart from landing inmates, the Bucor shall administratively operate the standard of government agency through its administrative directorates with internal control and through control and internal audit units. G. The Bucor shall employ full computerization in the build-up of maintenance and transmittal of necessary inmate regards to all prison and penal forms of the recipient agencies like Board of Pardons and Parole. So in section 6, the lands of Bureau of Corrections. So first, aside from administrative purposes, all Bucor lands shall be used for inmate security, reformation programs, and as well as promote sustainability, both for income and non-income generating programs, with or without partnership among non-government organizations, civil organizations, or other government entitles. So, as way to maximize its assets, the value of the effective and extensive reformation or corrections program for national inmates, the Bucor shall have the absolute authority to design, formulate, and implement land use development plans and policies. So, the third is the Bucor. So, the Bucor may purpose additional penal farms as may be necessary as possible aside its existing seven prison and penal farms to decongest existing penal institutions and accommodate the increasing number of inmates committed to the agency. So the Bureau of Corrections could be proposed any additional penal farms since they have the admission or they have the right to be to propose something. So the all Bucor land shall have the certificate title registered under its name. So if we can apply or we can have an additional Bucor, uh, the Bucor shall have the certificate of title and registered by its name of what is the land or where does the place was being created. So in section 7, the facilities of the Bureau of Corrections. The Bucor shall operate with standard and uniform design of prison facilities, reformation facilities, and administrative facilities through all the operating prison and penal farms such as the following: dormitory, administration building, perimeter hospital, recreation, training, workshop facility, mess hall, visiting area, water tank and pump, reception and diagnostic center, and service personnel facilities. So, inside the facilities with if we should operate the Bucor, so if there's a time that we build a facility, so there was there is a need of the presence of this thing, the dormitory, administrative building, and others, the perimeter hospital, and etc. So that for the purpose of the uniqueness and uniformity rather inside the building or inside the facility. So section B. Section 8 rather. Supervision of Bureau of Corrections, the Department of Justice or DOJ having the Bucor as line of Bureau of Constituent unit shall maintain a relationship of administrative supervision with latter as defined under section 38 to chapter 7 book 4 of Executive Order number 292 Administrative Code of 19A7. So section 9, organization and key positions of Bureau of Corrections. So the Bucor shall be headed by the director who assisted three deputy directors, one administrative administration, one security operations, and one for reformation, all whom shall appointed by the president upon the recommendation of the secretary DOJ. So second is the head of Bucor. So with the rank of undersecretary shall have the position entitled Director General of Corrections. The second officer in command of Bucor with the rank of Assistant Secretary shall have the position entitled Deputy Directors of Corrections. The third officer in command of Bucor with the rank of Chief Superintendent shall have the position and title of Corrections Chief Superintendent. So, third is the Department of Budget and Management or the DBM. So, what is the Department of Budget and DBM? So, DBM shall rationalize the existing organization structures and staffing pattern of Bucor in accordance with provisions of this Act and relevant compensation of position classification laws, rules, and regulations. So now let's move on to the section 10 or increase of personnel. So the Bucor shall maintain the custodial personnel to inmate ratio to 1:7 and reformation personnel to inmate ratio of 1:24. Hence, it is authorized to increase its manpower to meet such ratio and may continue to increase personnel per percentage rate increase of committed inmates annually or as the need arises. So now let's move on to the section 11. Section 11 is the professionalization and upgrading of qualification standards in the National of Bucor personnel. So how to apply cybercrime group or in the PNP. So there are the general qualifications for the appointment of the Philippine National Police or in the Bucor. This So there are 11 general qualifications. So first is we must have be a citizens in the Philippines. So we must live here in our country, Philippines, and we should be a citizen here. So second is the person of good moral conduct. So before we apply this thing, so we must have the good moral character in baccalaureate degrees in the college days. So we must have this a good moral character. So three, we must have passed the psychiatric or psychological drug and physical test to administered by the PNP. So we must have passed the psychological test in our mind so that basin og kanang natidepend siya sa atong panghuna-una, and then ma-apply na to agad while gatrabaho ta. And then there's a tendency that our work will be kanang mahimo na nun siyang maybe if ma-appoint ako sa pagka-PNP, maybe na yung mga mental problems ato ang ma-apply sa ato ang pagtrabaho, then muna siya result na matangtang bata, makasuhan na noon ta, like that. So, in number 4, must have possessed a formal baccalaureate degree from the organized learning institution. So we must have kanang dapat graduate ang college to possess or to have to be qualified as PNP personnel. So number 5, must possess any of the following eligibilities. So first, PNP entrance examination like NAPOLCOM. So, if before we possess to the following eligibilities, we must take this first, the four things. So, the PNP entrance examination. So, kanang ato ni siyang ma-take if kanang mo take tag board exam, if makauman na tag eskwela, and then if mapagsar na then we can matawag na siya og board passer. So, may mo na kang qualified na ka as PNP personnel. So, the NAPOLCOM or the National Police Commission means that bisan tod og dili ka criminology in the college, but if na kay baccalaureate degree or na kay nahuman sa college, and then if mo take ang NAPOLCOM and then you pass the exam ana, then mahimo ka nga police officer 1 na qualified ka also as PNP personnel. So second, RA number 1080 bar and board exams. Yeah. So yes, what I've mentioned ganiha nga we should take board exam kay wala na police nga wala ni take og board. So Third is the PD number 907 CS eligibility to college honor graduates. So, we must also have if honor graduate ka, so there's a tendency nga dako ka, chance nga ma-qualified ka. So, the fourth is the civil service professional. So, number six, must not have been dishonorably discharged from military employment or dismissed for cause of any civilian position in the government. Seven, must have been convicted by such final judgment of an offense of crime involving moral turpitude. So, if mo apply ka o law enforcer po, so dapat wala tay convict nga crime kanang wala ta naka-commit og any offense or crime sa when gabata ta while gatubo ay gabata ta hangtod sa pagdako, dapat dili ta maka-commit og crime since dako ni siya kayo og impact if mo apply ta as a law enforcer pohon. So, must weight not more or less than the 5 kilograms from the standard weight corresponding to his or her weight, age, and sex. So, sa number 10, we must not have less than 21 years of 30 years of age. So, if we should kanang take an exam, so dapat dili ta bata sa dili ta not less than 21, dapat dili pud ta 30 years above. So nara ana within kanang sa tawag ana sa 21 to 30 years old, nara diha ang time para mo take ta og board or mo apply ta as a PNP personnel. So number 11, last, preferably computer-related course such as basic computer engineering, basic computer science, and basic information technology. So in computer-related, ako ko kayo ni siya tabang para ma-qualified ka as a law enforcer pohon kay since the technology is still evolving nang natay if naay crime mahitabo like it was being documented through online or no, it is being documented through by the use of the computer, so to save data or information within that the crime happens. So dako po kay tabang if ma-prefer jud nila ang mga computer related course. Yeah. So now let's move on. So after the lapse of the period for the satisfaction of specific requirement, incumbent personnel of the Bucor who failed to separate from the service if they below 50 years of age and have been served away the government. So after the lapse of the period, so if makaabot na ta og 20 years sa ato ang service in service sa law enforcer, so okay na siya mga mo retire. But kanang ang actual jud or ang retirement jud sa PNP is that dapat nasa 50 years and above dapat mo serve yun siya sa government. So at least 20 years ng siya ni serve, pwede po siya na mo retired. So napo na siya yung mga benefits nga ihatag gikan sa gobyerno like if mo retired ka, pensionado ka, and then makadawat ka og dako nga salary ana kay nag-serve man ka sa government. So C is for sustained professionalism in the service, the Bucor is directed to conduct study of feasible establishment of Philippine Corrections Academy, patterned after the National Police or PNPA, the Philippine National Police, the Philippine Military Academy or PMA or Armed Forces of the Philippines AFP of its commissioned officers. So, Section 12. So, the appointment of personnel to the Bucor. The appointment of the Bucor shall be effected in following manner. So, first is Correction Officer 1 to the Director of Chief Superintendent appointed by the Director General of Corrections and attested to the Civil Service Commission CSC and Director General of Corrections and Deputy Director of Corrections appointed to the President upon the recommendation of Secretary of the DOJ. So now let's move on to the section 13. Lateral entry of officer into the Bucor. So in general, all original appointments of the officers in Bucor shall commence with rank of corrections inspector within applicants for lateral entry of the Bucor shall include all these highly specialized technical qualifications such as but not limited to civil engineers, mechanical engineers, engineers, chemical engineers, chemists, architects, criminologists, certified public accountants, nurses, physical therapists, dentists, social workers, psychologists, sociologists, guidance counselors, and teachers. So now let's move on to the section 14, professionalization upgrading of qualification standards in the designation of personnel of the Bucor to key positions. So first, no person shall be designated to the following key positions of Bucor unless one has met the qualifications provided therein. The first is sub-colony supervision should have the rank of senior inspector who must have finished at least second year of Bachelor of Laws or earned at least 12 units in master degree program. So in the sub-colony supervision, so if you should be in the senior inspector, you must have finished the Bachelor of Law and earned at least kanang 12 units para 12 units to take the master's degree program. Yeah. So now let's move. Wait. Second, colony assistant superintendent should have the rank chief inspector, must have finished at least second year Bachelor of Laws or earned 24 units in a master's degree program in management, public administration, public safety, criminology, penology, sociology, national security, administration, defense, studies under related disciplines from the recognized institution. From learning must have the satisfactorily passed the necessary training of career courses for such positions as may established by the Bucor. So third is the colony superintendent should have the rank of superintendent who must have graduate of bachelor laws or holder of master's degree in management, public administration, public safety, criminology, penology, sociology, national security, administration, defense study, or other related disciplines from recognized institution of learning and must have satisfactorily passed the necessary training of career courses such as position as be established by the Bucor. So, four is regional superintendent. So, should have the rank of senior superintendent or chief superintendent who must have the graduate of Bachelor of Laws or holder of the master's degree in management or public administration, public safety, criminology, penology, sociology, national security, administration, defense, other related disciplines from recognized institution learning and must have satisfactorily pass the necessary training or career courses for such position as may be established by the Bucor. So, first, the attrition by demotion its rank, position, or rank. So, any personnel of the Bucor who is relieved and assigned to the position lower than what is established for the grade in the respective staffing pattern, NUA shall not assign to a position by position commensurate of one's grade within 2 years after such demotion and position shall be separated from the service. B. Attrition by non-promotion. Any personnel by Bucor who has been promoted for continuous period after 10 years shall be separated on retired from service. So, third is attrition by other means. So, any personnel of Bucor with at based at is the following. First, inefficient C. Based on poor performance during at least two successive semestral rating periods. Second, inefficiency based on poor performance of three cumulative semestral rating periods. So the third, physical and or mental incapacity to perform one's duties and functions, or fourth, failure to complete the required career courses and or appropriate civil service eligibility for his or her position except for justifiable cause or reason. And D. Separation of retirement from Bucor under his section. Any person who is dismissed from the Bucor pursuant to above enumerated principles in the section shall be separated if one has rendered less than 20 years of service. So, Section 17, Promotion System for the Personnel of the Bucor. Within 6 months after the effectivity of this act, the Bucor shall establish a system of promotion for personnel of Bucor through the following principles. First, the rationalized promotion system, or the system of promotion shall be based on merit on the availability of vacant ranks in Bucor staffing pattern. Such system shall be general fair so as to ensure the woman personnel of Bucor shall enjoy equal opportunity for promotion as men. So what is the rational promotion system? So this system includes the promote to a higher rank, which ensure that also women can have uh, every woman personnel in the Bucor shall have an equal opportunity for the promotion like men. So, dili ni siya bias since they are equal for the men and women. So, be retirement for promotion. So, any personnel of the Bucor shall not be eligibility for promotion to a higher rank unless one has met maximum qualification standards or the appropriate civil service eligibility set by the CSC and has satisfactorily passed the required psychiatric, psychological, drug, physical, and yeah. So, in any personnel of the Bureau of Corrections, so before it is necessary to be eligibility to promote in higher rank. So we must required to have the psychological drug test that so any personnel of Bucor who has exhibited acts of conspicuous courage and gallantry in the risk of one's life above and beyond the call of duty are selected as such as nationwide search conducted by accredited civic organization shall be promoted to the next higher rank. So B, the requirements for promotion. So any personnel of Bucor. So I'm done already for that. So section 18, performance evaluation system. First, there shall be established a performance evaluation system which shall be administered in accordance with the rules, regulations, and standards, and a code of conduct for the personnel of the Bucor to promulgated by the Bucor through the DOJ. Yeah. B. The rating system of contemplated herein shall be based on standards prescribed by the Bucor through the DOJ and shall be considered the result of the annual psychological and physical tests conducted on the personnel of the Bucor. Section 19. So, standardization of base pay and other benefits of the uniformed personnel of the Bucor in order to enhance the general welfare, commitment to service, and professionalization of the following considered uniformed personnel of the Bucor. The DBM, shall determine the equivalent rank of uniformed personnel of the Bucor pattern after the existing ranks of the military and uniformed personnel of other departments. The base pay, allowances, and other benefits of the above mentioned personnel shall be accordance with existing compensation and position classification laws and regulations. So, Section 20. So, in the Section 20, we should know the benefit if we are retired in the service. So, retirement benefit. So, upon the compulsory retirement, any custodial officer from the rank of corrections of chief superintendent and below shall be entitled retirement benefits computed on basis on one grade higher than the position has held. So, Section 21. Funding source. The funds required for the implementation of Act including personal benefits shall taken from budget of Bucor for the current fiscal year and also from the following. First, corrections from clearances and certificates for certification fees. Second, income from the institutional projects subject to memorandum of agreements or MOA, contracts or joint venture agreements and other miscellaneous incomes in outside MOAs and contracts such as penal farm, agro production, and inmate handicraft industry. So thereafter, such amounts of may unnecessary implement this act shall be included the annual General Appropriations Act. Now let's move on to the security and control of prisoners. So, security procedures in Philippine Correctional Institution from administration to release, admission to release. Security in prisons includes but is not limited to managing restrictive housing populations, classifications and assessment, managing special populations and security audit. The backbone of the correctional facility is good security. If a prisoner possess a challenge corrective functions in an escaping, the convict is presumed to be armed and dangerous and thereof must be pursued and subdued using any and all means with emphasis at fatal effects. A shoot to kill move is presumed unless contrary orders are given. So in the event the accused is convicted for violating the revised penal code and other special laws and is given sentence with maximum period more than 3 years, he is to be transported to be in the national penitentiary within period of 60 days. This period is to be reckoned on the date of commitment order as is issued by the court. So, the correctional authorities must be guided by the observed in due course by the following. So, first, those who maximum sentence is below 3 years to serve time in local jails. So, kung kinsa tong mo serve below 3 years, siya. So, those whose sentence is below 3 years but whose sentence includes fine more than 2,000 pesos were transferred to the National Penitentiary. So those whose maximum sentence in more than 3 years for transfer in National Penitentiary. So muna siya if i-transfer nimo ang usa ka sentence na person kung mubayad siya og bail og 2,000 pesos para ma-transfer sa National Penitentiary o kinsa ang maximum nga sentence sa 3 years if makaabot sila sa 3 years so pwede sila ma-transfer into sa National Penitentiary. So those whose cases are still under trial to await judicial verdict in local security and reasons to court rules are invoked. The prison may be transferred in national authorities such as the President, Congress, and courts. Fifth, those who commit the violations in parole or executive clemency for transfer in national penitentiary to serve the remaining portion of the penalty. So those who are captured escapes from the national penitentiary for transfer for the national penitentiary to serve remaining portion of penalty along with penitentiary penalty for evasion. So, checking the commitment order. So, under the institution rules, newly admitted shall be receive admission in facility. So, first, the provincial form number 45, this will indicate that person to be turned over the real person concerned. So, the second is commitment order of the court mitimus, legal basis for transfer. So, the third is information in court decision of the case. So the fourth is certification of detention for purpose of evaluating the prison's record. So the fifth is the certification that the case that the inmate is not appealed for purpose of evaluation. So strip search and inventory of personal property. So upon admission of the inmate, it is searched truly that in are ushered into quarantine area or purposes of physical examination while undergoing classification or being categorized by institution, he is allowed to retain in his possession only such articles as the authorized. So, register. A register or logbook shall contain details and newly received prisoners to register shall contain the following. So, if moto tas mga bisag asa gani kanang pananglit musulod tas usa ka agency like that, najud kalagmitan ang register book. So, naapoy sa university sa Norso, na siya logbook dito, pwede mag ato insert dito ang mga following diri sa slide. So, the name of the inmate, so ang tao or name sa tao na or name sa inmate. So yeah. So reasons for commitment and authority, therefore the sentence, the date of hour of admission. So kanang pag-adto dito ilan ang ilagbook unsa silang oras naabot o unsang pitsa sila naabot. So date and hour of discharge, transfer and basis, therefore this is where the institutional process or purposes since the newly received prisoner is subject to a 60-day orientation period. So identification. So, after the registration of the procedures, the inmate shall undergo the following. So, photograph. So, before siya ma-filean jud, usa siya preso. So, naagod siya, dapat siya naka-photograph in side view, then the front view. So, napod siya, it is needed po na fingerprint kay since ang fingerprint kay unique man siya, so ma-identify siya kay if makasave ang data dito, ma-identify tayo nga siya to kay since ang fingerprint is unique man. So assign to a person, assign a prison number. Kanang i-assign na siya sa prisuhan, unsang numero ha siya ibutang sa number sa prisuhan siya ibutang. So regulation, haircut and government issues. As security measure, male persons are subjected to regulation, haircut. So ang security measure, dapat ang mga inmate dito sa sulod sa jail, dapat sila nakabahig ang ilang alot, dapat maba ilang buhok. So beard and mustache if any are shaven off. So wala sila bungot. Yeah, wala sila yung mga bungot dere. And also the inmate will be issued 2 regulation uniforms and 2 t-shirts. So napod sila uniform ng mga t-shirt para kuan sila para well behave well kanang uniform sila, sila uniformity like that. So in addition, the prisoners is issued the following for his use, which must surrendered with release or discharge to it. 1. Blanket, mat, pillow with pillowcase, mosquito net, nesket, pair of slippers. So, kailangan ni siya para muna siya kailangan sa mga piniriso dito sa Suwan. Dapat na sila blanket, sila mat, na sila alugnan, mga moskitero, mesket, o chinilas. Ano sila yung needs inside the jail kada usa nila. So, classification of prisoners. So All correctional facilities have their respective classifications board headed by the superintendent and his staff. Inmates are classified according to their security status and determined security risk category. The categories are the follows. The first, maximum security. This includes highly dangerous or high security risk inmates are determined by classification board under this category belong. Those whose maximum sentence 20 years. Yeah. Remand prisoners who sentenced in 20 years and above of those whose sentence are under review by Supreme Court or Court of Appeals. Third, those with pending cases. So second, medium security. Those who are below 20 years, those who are 18 years and below, regardless of case and sentence. So those who have two or more records of escape, if they have served 8 years since they have recommitted, those with one record escape have served 5 years to be reclassified to medium security. Minimum security, those reasonably trusted serve penalty and under less restrictive conditions includes the following. Those who severe physical handicap as certified by chief medical officer of institution, those who have 65 years old and above who's without a pending and whose convictions are not on appeal. The third, those who have not served half of their minimum sentence and their maximum sentence, including good conduct time allowance, those who have 6 months more served before the expiration of their maximum sentence. So, so uniform dress code so determines the security category under the prisoner falls by the color of his uniform which follows maximum security tangerine. So for the maximum security mo wear sila og na sila yung dress code inside the jail. So for the maximum security, mag-wear sila color na tangerine. So sa medium security, naka-wear sila blue t-shirts. So in the minimum security, naka-wear sila brown and then the detainees are gray. Gray. So well bahig og kailahang um uh, ilahang dress code dito kay ma-classify nimo sila kung unsa sila nga klase na or unsa sila nga category na belong. So, colony status, inmates are given entitles as to privileges in addition to those granted with their classification limitations. This is considered as achieving colony status under the system. The Director of Corrections, upon recommendation of the Classification Board, classifies an inmate as colony is qualified for this status is first, one whose character and credit for work while serving time earned assignment in trust for more than 60 years, and B, one of those who serve imprisonment with good conduct for a period equivalent of 50th of maximum term of prison sentence or in the case of serving life sentence 7 years, his privileges include the following: automatic reduction of life sentence imposed to colonists a sentence of 60 years, B. Allowing his family to live with him, with the government shouldering transportation requirements in the movement, and availing hospital, church, school, and other services provided by such prison facilities, free of charge. E. Issuance of reasonable amount of clothing and ordinary household supplies from the government commissionary. In addition, free subsistence. F. The option to wear civilian clothes, such as special occasions, as may be designated by the superintendent. So, let's move on to the releasing of the prisoner. So, there are the kinds of release. So, prisons are released and confined for any of the following reasons. First, upon expiration of the sentence. So, if a person or the inmate nga ma-release, so basin og naabta na of pila ka tuig na expire ang iyang sentence, then nana siya kuan nga makagawa sa prisuhan. So the second is by order of the court of competent authority. So naano siya order sa court na maka-release na siya. So authority to release, those authorized to order or approve the release of inmates are first the Supreme Court of the lower courts in case of acquittal or grant of bail. The second is the President of the Philippines in case of executive clemency of amnesty. The third, the Board of Pardons and Parole. The fourth is the Director of Corrections. So, the separation and placement center. So, it is mandated for prisoners to be released. Example, those scheduled date release shall be within 30 days. In this year, where the prisoners clear the government property and property accountability. Inmates in this facility undergo one-day seminar in preparation for their lives outside prison. So, the third is the release of prisoners in conducted by the institution superintendent with the approval of the director of corrections. So, let's move on to the care and treatment of prisoners. So, the Bureau of Correction shall be charged of safekeeping and instituting reformation programs to national inmates sentenced to more than 3 years through progressive, effective, and efficient administration. So, safekeeping of national inmates in compliance with established of United Nations standard minimum rules of treatment programs. The safekeeping of inmates shall include this. So, the decent and adequate provision of basic necessities such as shelters, quarters, food, water, and medicine. So, dapat na sila ani na also the basic needs at what I've mentioned earlier na dapat sila decente lang taon o na sila yung mga basic necessities for them to kanang mabuhi sila for them to survive, yeah. So B, proper observance of prescribed privileges such as regulated communication and visitation. So, dapat po if ay mo visit nila for their loved ones, silang family, dapat po na sila kanang communication nga makipag halubilo sa ilang mga relatives na imong bisita. Yeah. So, efficient processing of necessary documentary requirements and records for their timely release. The processing of those documentary requirements shall be undertaken by the Directorate for Inmate Documents for Records. So, the core of objective this safekeeping provision is according to dignity of man, the inmates while serving sentence with the basis of human understanding of Presidential Proclamation 551 Series 1995 with the OMS-M RTP Rule 60. So, let's move on to the prohibited act subjects to disciplinary actions. So, this means that the participation in illegal sexual acts, public display and of pornographic materials, absence language, and displaying any behavior which might lead to disorder or violence, possession of articles posing a threat to prison security or maligning or insulting any religious belief or group, giving gifts, selling, engaging in barter with anybody, gambling, loitering, rendering, and personal services to be requiring personal services from inmate, tattooing himself, engaging business or profession from within. So let's move on also to the self-discipline. So to achieve its purpose, discipline shall be firm to ensure safety and good order in prison. So dapat nakay-disiplina sa imong kagalingon so that nakay-safety sulod sa prison. That so so procedures for handling disciplinary cases. First, a written complaint shall be filed with the superintendent by the aggrieved inmate by any inmate or prison personnel having personal knowledge of the incident. Second, superintendent conducts initial investigation and in the complaint found to have basis shall endorse a case of board discipline for hearing. The third, the Board of Discipline shall decide the case of within 5 working days after termination of hearings. Fourth, the hearing is summary in nature bound by technical rules of evidence. Fifth, the inmate charged shall be allowed to present evidence hearing and The last one is the decision of Board of Discipline is subject to review and approval by the superintendent whose decision is final. So there are the disciplinary measures. So first is the caution or reprimand. Second is the cancellation of privileges. Third is deprivation of GTCA and change of securities classification. So these are the list of prohibited acts subjected to disciplinary actions. So the greatest severity level prohibited acts, so like killing. So muna siya pinaka-prohibited na act o muna siya mga act na pinaka harsh, like if makakommit ka ani dako ug kayo siya hatol sa atong law. So killing, assaulting any person or any armed assault on the institution secure perimeter, escape from escort, escape from any secure or non-secure institution including community confinement, escape from the unescorted community program or activity, escape from outside security institution. So third is setting a fire. So now let's move on to the Bureau, the BGMP or the Bureau of Jail and Management. Let's move on to the BGMP RA 6975. Yeah. So as mandated by law, the BGMP shall operate under the reorganized Department of Interior and Local Government or the DILG starting from the scratch with 5,000 personnel in 1991. The BGMP weaned from the mother of PCR INP as a mere component to become full-fledged bureau. Director Charles S. Mondihar took his oath of an officer July 1 of Charles S. Mondihar took his office July 1 of 1991, the first chief of the bureau. So now let's move on to the Republic Act of 6975. An act established the Philippines National Police under a reorganized Department of the Interior and Local Government and for other purposes. So Chapter 5, the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology. So Section 60, Composition. The Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, herein after referred to as a Jail Bureau, hereby created initially consisting of officers and uniformed members of the Jail Management and Penology Service as constituted under Presidential Decree number 6765. So, Section 61, Powers and Functions. The Jail Bureau shall exercise supervision and control over the city and municipal jails. The provincial jail shall be supervised and controlled by the provincial government within its jurisdiction, whose expenses shall be subsidized by the national government for not more than 3 years and effectively for this act. Section 62, Organization. So, the jail bureau shall be headed by chief who shall be assisted by deputy chief. The headed jail bureau shall compose of city municipal jails, each headed by city municipal jail warden. So, Section 64. So, in Section 64, we can see here the rank classifications. For the purpose of efficient administration, supervision, and control, the rank classifications of the members of the jail bureau shall be as follows. So, here is the first rank. Highest rank is the director. Second is chief superintendent, senior superintendent, superintendent, chief inspector, senior inspector, inspector, senior jail officer 4, senior jail officer 3, senior jail officer 2, senior jail officer 1, and in the lower unit is jail officer 3, jail officer 1, and the smallest unit of officer is the jail officer 1. So let's move on to the section 65 key positions. The head of jail of the Bureau with the rank of Director shall have the position title Chief of Jail Bureau. He shall be assisted by Deputy Chief with the rank of Chief Superintendent. Uh, so now let's move on to the Republic Act of 9262 or the VAUSI. So the Violence Against Women, Children. So women and their children. So the Republic Act number 9263 is this an act providing for the professionalization of the Bureau of Fire Protection or BFP and the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology or BGMP amending certain provisions, Republic Act number 6975 providing funds thereof or other purposes. So, Section 1. This act shall be known as the Bureau of Fire Protection, the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology Professionalization Act of 2004. So, Section 2. Declaration of Policy and Principles. It is declared policy of the state of maintain peace and order, protect life, liberty, and property, and promote the general welfare, essential for the enjoyment by the people of the blessings of democracy. Article 2, Section 5 of the Philippines Constitution. Moreover, it is recognized the responsibility of the state of the strengthened government capability aimed towards the strengthening of the delivery of basic services of citizenry through the institutionalization of highly effective, competent fire of jail services. So let's move on to the section 3. So section 3, organization and key positions of the BFP and the BGMP. So the BFP and the BGMP shall be respectively headed by the chief, who shall be assisted by two deputy chief, one for administration and one for operations, and all of shall be appointed by the president of the recommendation of the security of the DALG from among qualified officers with at least rank of senior superintendent of the service. So, Section 4, professionalization and upgrading of qualifications, standards in the appointment of uniformed personnel to the BFP and the BGMP. So no two persons shall be appointed as uniformed personnel of the BFP and the BGMP unless he or she possesses the following minimum qualifications. So, I already mentioned here this, so ako lang ni siyang i-summary. So, we must be a citizen of the Philippines, so we must be live here in the Philippines, and dapat sign na ta nga we are here in the Philippines na nagdi lang nagpuyo o citizen jud ta nga diri ta gipanganak. That so naputay dapat natay good moral conduct nga makuha nato sa degree sa college that ini kanang gikan sa gamay pa ta natay good moral conduct, good moral character. So dapat nakaposes sa naka sa drug test dapat napto nga mapasara ni dapat watay problema sa panghuna-una makapasa ta sa psychiatric exam that para ma-determine if nabatay para ma-determine nga nabatay kanang problema sa atong mind that so must possess a baccalaureate degree from recognized institution of learning. So as what I've said, dapat natay nahuman sa college. So must have not been dishonorably discharged or dismissal for cause from previous employment. So, must not have been convicted by final judgment of an offense of crime involving moral turpitude. So, dapat wala tayo na kuan kanang na commit of crime. Dapat wala tayo any offense na nabuhat para ma-appoint ta as the BFP or the BGMP or as a law enforcer pohon. So, must be at least 1 meter and 62 centimeters for the male and 1 meter and 57 centimeters for the female. So, muna siya gitawag na dapat ang mga male makuha dapat if makasulod ka ng law enforcer dapat ang height nakapalo ani 1.26 1.62 meters sa male o sa bayi 1.57 meters. So must weigh not more or less than 5 kilograms from the standard weight corresponding to his height, age, and sex. So, so Section 5, Appointment of Uniform Personnel to the BFP and BGMP. The appointment of BFP and the BGMP shall be effected in the following manners. First, fire or jail officer 1 to senior fire jail officer 4, appointed by the respective Regional Director for Fire Protection and Regional Director for Jail Management and Penology for Regional Office Uniform Personnel or by respective Chief of Fire Bureau of Chief of the Jail Bureau of the National Headquarters Office Uniform Personnel and attested by the Civil Service Commission or CSC. So, let's move on to the section 7, professionalization and upgrading of qualification standards in the designation of the uniform personnel of BFP and the BGMP to key positions. So, letter A, no no shall be designated to the following key positions of the BFP and the BGMP unless he or she meet the qualifications provided therein. So, Municipal Fire Marshal shall have the rank of Senior Inspector who have finished at least Bachelor Laws or earned 12 units in Master Degree programs in Public Administration, Management, Engineering, Public Safety, Criminology, and other related discipline from recognized institution of learning and must have satisfactorily passed the necessary training of learning and must have been satisfactory past the necessary training of career courses such as position may be established of Fire Bureau. So, City Fire Marshal should the rank to Senior Inspector who must have finished at least second year of laws earned by 24 units in must have degree in programs Public Administration Management, Engineering, Public Safety, Criminology, and the related disciplines from recognized institution of learning. So, the City Fire Marshal, dapat siya nakarank siya og sa Senior Inspector, dapat nakahuman siya og Bachelor of Laws, nga naka-earn siya og 24 units sa master's degree para promote siya to higher rank. So, District Fire Marshal. Provincial Fire Marshal Assisted Regional Director for Administration Assistant, Regional Director for Operations, and Regional Chief of Director Staff. So, number 4, District Fire Marshal for the National Capital Region, Regional Director for Fire Protection and Direction of the Directorate of the National Headquarters Office. Should have at least rank of Senior Superintendent who must graduate Bachelor of Laws and Master's degree of Public Administration, Management, Engineering, Public Safety, Criminology, and other related disciplines for the recognized institution of learning and must have satisfactorily passed the necessary training of career course such position is may established by Fire Bureau. So now let's move on to the Deputy Chief for Administration for Fire Bureau and Deputy Chief for Operations of the Fire Bureau of Chief Directorial Staff of Fire Bureau should have been the rank of Superintendent who must be a member of Philippine Bar or a holder of a master's degree in public administration, management, engineering, public safety, criminology, and other related disciplines from recognized institution of learning and must have passed the necessary training or career courses such as be established by Fire Bureau. And 6 is the Fire and Prevent Chief of Fire Bureau. So should have been the rank of director who must be member of the Philippine Bar and holder of master's degree in public administration. So yeah, it's still the same on the number 5. So yeah, kailangan pa yun nun. So management, engineering, public safety, criminology, and other related disciplines from the recognized institution learning must have satisfactorily passed the necessary training and career courses such as position may be established by the Fire Bureau. So let's move on to the section 8, and Section 9. So in Section 8, the Professionalization and Qualifications Upgrading Program, the DILG or the Department of Interior and Local Government shall design and establish a professionalization and qualifications upgrading program for uniformed personnel of the Bureau of Fire Protection and the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology in coordination with the CSC and the Commission of Higher Education or CHED through off-campus education program or similar programs within 90 days for the effective of this act or in section 90 attrition system for the uniformed personnel of BFP of the BGMP there shall be established for the system of attrition uniformed personnel of the BFP and BGMP 1 year for the effective of this act to be submitted of bureaus of the IDLG. Approval such as attrition system shall include but it is limited to provision of the following principles. Now let's move on to the section 10 promotion system for the uniformed personnel of the BFP and BGMP. Within 6 months after the effectivity of this act, the ILG shall establish a system of promotion for the uniformed personnel of the Bureau of Fire Protection and the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology through the following principles. First, rationalized promotion system. The system of promotion shall be based on the merits on the availability of vacant ranks in BFP and the BGMP staffing patterns. Such system shall be gender fair as to be ensured that women personnel of Fire Bureau and Fire and Jail Bureau shall enjoy the equal opportunity of promotion as the men. So, Section 11, Performance Evaluation System. So, there shall be established a performance evaluation system which shall be administered with ordinance with the rules, regulations, and standards and the code of conduct for the uniformed personnel of the BFP and BGMP to the promulgated by the Fire Bureau of the Jail Bureau through the DILG. Such performance evaluation systems shall be administered in such a way to to foster the improvement of the individual efficiency and behavioral disciplinary as well as the promotion of organizational effectiveness and commitment to service. So let's move on now to the section 12, 13, and 14. So in section 12, standardization of the base pay, retirement, and other benefits of the uniformed personnel of the BFP and the BGMP. In order to enhance the general welfare, commitment of to service and professionalism of the uniformed personnel of the BFP and BGMP shall receive the minimum starting salary equivalent to the salary grade level of the corresponding rank classification to their counterparts in PNP provided under the Section 36 Republic Number 8551 and the AFP provided under Section 2 of Republic Act of 19 of Republic Number 9166. So, Section 13. So, implementation. The implementation of act shall be undertaken in staggered phases but not exceeding 3 years, taking the consideration of financial position of the national government. Section 14. Implementation rules and regulations. The DILG in the coordinates of BFP and BGMP, the CSC, the Department of Budget and Management (BBM), the Department of Finance (DOF) shall within 90 days of effectively promulgate the rules of regulations necessary for the implement of the provision of this act. So let's move on to the section 15. Annual report. The BFP of the BGMP through the DILG and the BBM shall shortly submit the President State to Speaker, House of Representatives an annual report on implementation of this act. This report should include information, the application of budget for the salary and other benefits provided under Act of the BBM, consultation with the BFP and BGMP through the DILG shall periodically review and Adjust 5 years the rates of base pay, taking into consideration labor productivity, consumer price index, oil, and other similar economic indicators as may be determined the Police Economic and Development Authority or NEDA. So, in Section 16, separability clause. So, if any portion of or any provision of this act is declared unconstitutional, the same shall not affect the validity and effectivity of other provisions not affected hereby. Section 17, repealing clause. All laws, decrees, orders, rules, first, repealing clause. All laws, decrees, orders, rules, and regulations and other issuance or parts thereof which are inconsistent with the provisions of Act are hereby deemed repealed, amended, or modified accordingly. In Section 18, effectivity. This act shall be take effect 15 days after its complete publication of official gazette or in at least two newspapers of general circulation, whichever comes earlier. So, offenders with special security or supervision needs such as protective custody cases, death row inmates for those chronically exhibit potential and aggressive behavior, or sex offenders to whom appropriate treatment may reduce the risk of reoffending. Substance abuse is the major cause of creating special needs offenders in society. Special needs offenders are given special attention during intake the incarceration. Proper evaluation and assessment has to conducted during the intake of these offenders. The state departments of corrections and various other agencies work closely in the treatment process of special needs offenders through programs such as community policing, community-based corrections, and community citizen integration. So now let's move on to the privileges of detainees and sentenced prisoners. So, what are the rights of the prisoner or detainees? So, as provided for the Constitution, the state values the dignity, there's a dignity of every human. So, as the Constitution says or state that every human has an own dignity. So, every human have the state values the dignity for of every human person and guarantees full respect for human rights. So, an individual through in prison does not lose his inherent rights to dignity, his human rights, regardless of what they she or have done, whatever political convictions he may have. So, right of detainees. So, there are the rights of detainees. So, right to be free from personal abuse and right to be protected against the following. So, any deprived or his basic needs under normal situation. So the right of the detainees have this. So dapat na siya basic needs, food, shelter, water, clothing. Muna siya kailangan sa mga detainees and then they have the right na makuha nila kay naman sila kuan kanang they should respect if unsay needed sa usa ka detainee. Yeah. Corporal punishment. Number two, corporal punishment. A. Use of physical force. B. Solitary confinement of segregation as positive measures. So, if mogamit sila physical force that was against the law, makapasakit sa mga detainees. That. So, number three, right to good conduct time allowance GTCA for good behavior. Number four, right to have access to following for far as practicable. A. Medicine and health services, rehabilitation program, visitation, free legal services, and materials. So, na sila right to access sa ilahang family, relatives, and to socialize others. Kana na sila free will, bisag na sila sa prisuhan, but dili nila kayo i-harsh ang usa ka detainee. So, na sila right nga magpakonsulta ng mga programa, ng mo visit nilang mga relatives o mga legal services o mga materyales. So number 5. So right to excessive is religious belief. So every detainees na lahi man na siya og mga reliyon, so we should respect their religions as well. So they should respect kay ilahan ng katungod. So right to air grievances and complain through proper authorities, and right of women offenders to be personally attended or supervised by super woman officer without prejudice to male doctors, nurses, and social welfare officers for carrying out their professional duties in institution for women. So number 8, right of foreign nationals to communicate with diplomatic and consular representative. So let's move. So existing measures protecting and promoting the rights of detainees and prisoners. First, upgrading of prisons facilities. So, ilan ang gina-upgrade ang mga facility since nagka-crowd na ang mga number of mga inmates karon, mga prisoners. Number 2, strengthening rehabilitation strategies. So, ilang ipahusgan ang mga rehabilitation sites, ang mga rehab programs na sila yung mga strategy nga buhaton so that ma-strengthen ang ilang program. So, third, decongestion of prison or jail. PD 28 and Act established 7 regional prisons and converting existing national penal institution into regular prisons and penal forms. Fifth, transfer of prisoners to other prisons where opportunities for rehabilitation are better and prison conditions are less congested. Number 6, PD 698 as amended, known as adult probation law. So number 7, provision, education, and training for inmates for medical security. 8, passage of RA 6975, Department of Local Interior and Local Government Act of 1990, which provided for the creation of the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology. And the last one is the creation of the Assistance of Visitorial Services by Commission on Human Rights to monitor jail and detention centers in the country. So, in the regional rehabilitation centers for youth. So, yeah. So, these are the picture of the regional rehabilitation center for the youth or the young children. So, under if for this is the Cebu. Na siya sa Argao, Cebu. So, muna siya yung mga minor na nakakommit of crimes. So, diri silang facility ibutang. The Regional Rehabilitation Center for Youth or RRCY is residential facility for children in conflict with law ages 15 years old and below 18. So, if any person or any child, youth commits crime on the age of 15 years and below 18 must undergo with the you may call this in the Regional Rehabilitation Center in Argao. So what is their vision? So their vision is to enable youth offenders to restore their social functioning and live in a normal life through reintegration and reunification to their family or relatives and become productive member of the community and society. So their mission is to provide social protection to disadvantaged youth ages over 9 years old and below 18 years old who needs appropriate care, guidance and supervision, rehabilitation and development through alternative form of parental care with coordination with the local government units, social workers, and other stakeholders. So, their goals is to provide a 24-hour individual and group care treatment, rehabilitation services under the guidance of trained staff where residents are cared for the structured therapeutic environment, enable youth offenders who cannot undergo rehabilitation in the community to benefit residential setting and provide them with substitute parental care and protection. So, provision of protective, rehabilitative, and development of the programs and services for them to acquire social and development skills and to improve self-image. Facilitate speedily discomposition of minors' case in court and prepare them to be reunited and integrated with the family and community, monitoring and supervision of after case service. So these are the services and interventions. So the first is the social service, or it is called the individual or group counseling. The second is casework or case management. So individual, group, family therapy, and value affirmation session. So muna siya yung mga social service na ginabuhat sa ito. So home life service, provision of basic needs such as clothing, shelter, development of values and appropriate social works of science. So, in homework services na sila yung mga gala mo dito na sila assignment sulod sa center like kanang magluto-luto na sila and ilan ng lutoon para sila makakaon sila. So, they are giving care. So, ilang ginampingan isa ng mga bata dito sa mm, sa ilahang center. So, educational services, formal and non-formal and special education in preparation for independent living after the youth offenders will be discharged from the center. So, yeah, na sila yung mga education services like they teach kanang mga kanang like mura pag nasa eskwelahan bisag nasulod sa silda but they have to right to learn bisag bata pa sila. So, psychological services, provision of psychological or psychiatric assessment and evaluation, psychotherapy sessions, and counseling. Fifth is the health service, provision of medical dental examination. So, na sila yung mga kaning health problems or dental problems. So, na sila right para undergo anang sa health service. And six is the livelihood service. Is there as a productive activities in preparation for future economic independence and selection of occupation or vocation of youth offenders. Example of practical skills training, income generating projects, and on the job training and placement. So, number seven, recreational and cultural activities. So, activity 6 enhance moral and spiritual development of residents such as sports and athletics, arts and crafts, celebrating of special events like celebration of Christmas, birthday, and family day. So, even though na sila sa sulod sa facility sa DSWD, sa Argao, or bisag asa nga DSWD, they have also the right to join the recreational activities like Christmas, birthdays, and family. Makaloy po kayo na bata pa sila but they don't dili sila maka-experience ana if dili ni pwede sa ilaha. But luckily, kaning kanang ilang gitagag importance ang mga bata dito, ilang giayo galam, ila gitagaan og freedom para magbuhat dito kung silang ganahan. But to fit this kaning mga activities. So, 8. Community participation. These are involvement of residents in selected activities that develop their sense of social responsibility and community belongings. So, if sa community participation, so basing na mga events, like na sila kailangan silang makipag-communicate sa other people para po ma-develop ang ilahang kaning communicating skills, kanang pag-participate sa any programs like that. So 9. So spiritual enrichment. So religious activities and Bible studies wherein the youth are given opportunity to experience the divine intervention and comfort of God as an ultimate source of help of their problems. So as they undergo with the spiritual enrichment kana napod sila Bible studies na sila they ni they teach na ilang gipanagtudloan sila sa mga word of God and ila pong gitudloan og maayong pambuhat nasugo sa Ginoo nga sa ang kanang ilang gibuhat karon sa ilang mga problema nga ilang ginaampo mo na ilang ginabuhat sa dito to have the religious activities and Bible study. So now let's move on to the Child and Youth Welfare Code. So, what is their scope? So the scope is it is to apply the persons 20 below 21 years of age except those emancipated in accordance with law. Child or minor or youth as use of code shall be referred such persons. So rights of child. So all children shall be entitled to rights herein set forth without distinction to legitimacy or illegitimacy, sex, social culture, religion, and political antecedents, and other factors. So first, every child is endowed with the dignity and worth of human being from moment of his conception and generally accepted in medical parlance and has therefore the right to born well. Every child has the right to wholesome family life and will provide him love, care, and understanding guidance, counseling, and moral and material security. So the child has the right to remain to his family because family is the foundation of life. So uh, since the family is there for us, and then the responsibility would be by the responsibility is giving guidance and also support to their childs or their children. So every child has a right to well-rounded development of his personality to the end may become happy, useful, and active member of society. The gifted child shall be given opportunity and encouraged to develop special talents. So some child have has their own talent. So, dapat ang mga ginikanan mo suporta sa ilang bata for them na to develop and maybe mo na siya rason para sa ikasinso ninyo sa iyang mga skills, talents, ilang mga passion. So, dapat family full support yun na sa kanilang mga anak. So, four, every child has the right to balanced diet, adequate clothing, sufficient shelter, proper medical attention, and all the basic physical requirements of healthy and vigorous life. So, ang every child, ang mga bata na kita, ang mga bata, na sila right to choose their kanang sa ilang ganahan, na sila freedom about sa ilang life, sa ilang body, physically or mentally. So, na sila right to live na. Yeah. So nara jud sa ginikanan it mo support ba sila basta dili ra jud ikadaot sa kanilang mga anak. Yeah. So, fifth, every child has the right to be brought up in the atmosphere of morality and rectitude of enrichment and strengthening of his character. Every child has the right of education and commensurate with his abilities to his development skills, improvement of capability for service to himself to his fellow men. So every child has the right to go in school, to have proper education, and to learn something, and for them na sila goal. So yan, so ang purpose sa pag-eskwela is to have the goal soon makuha ang imong pangandoy that. So every child has the right of protection against exploitation, improper influences, hazards, and other conditions or circumstances prejudicial to his physical, mental, emotional, and social and moral development. Number nine, every child has the right to live in community and society that can offer him an environmental free and pernicious influence and conducive to the promotion of his death and cultivation of his desirable traits and attributes. So, number 10, every child has the right to care, assistance, and protection of the state, particularly when his parents or guardians fail or unable to provide him that is fundamental needs of growth, development, and improvement. Number 11, every child has the right to efficient and honest government that will deepen faith in the democracy and inspire him with a morality for the constituted authorities born with public and private lives. Number 12. Every child has the right to grow up and free individual in an atmosphere or peace. Understand tolerance and universal brotherhood, and with the determination of contribute his share in the building of the better world. So, Let's move on to the commencement of civil personality. So the civil personality of the child shall be commenced from the time of his conception, civil purpose favorable to him, subject to the requirements of Article 41 of Civil Code. So, parents, as here used, shall include the guardian and head the institution of foster home as custody of the child. excuse, excuse. Working children. So, employment of children below 16 years may be employed to perform light work which not harmful to their safety, health, and normal development which is not prejudicial to their studies. So, nasa na gipang offer sa mga working students. So, na yung mga employment for the children below 16 years. Like, manglabada ba na sila, manilhig, kanang para madili makahadlang sa ilang pag-eskwela and napod sila support o na sila suporta gikan sa ilang trabaho like makaambag-abag sila sa mga galastuan para sa ilang mga kaugalingon o para sa ilang ginikanan. So, register of children. Every employer in this commercial industries or agricultural establishment enterprises shall keep a register of all children employed by him indicating the detainees of their both education of children employed as domestics. If domestic is undertaken of years of age, 16 years of age, the head of family shall given him the opportunity to complete at least elementary education as required under Article 71. The code of such as education shall be a part of domestic compensation upon the stipulation to the contrary. Special categories of children. So, a dependent child is one who is without a parent, guardian, or custodian, or one whose parents, guardian, or custodian for good cause desires to be relieved of his care and custody. It is dependent upon the public and support. So, a neglected child whose basic needs have been deliberate, unattended, or inadequate attended, neglect may occur in two ways. In three ways, rather. So, there are physical neglect with the child in malnourished, island, and without proper shelter. A child with unattended when left him to without provision of his needs without proper supervision. Emotional neglect exists with children and maltreated, raped, seduced, with children are exploited, overworked and or made to work under conditions not conducive to good health or not made beg streets in public places or when children are moral danger or exposed to gambling, prostitution, and other vices. So, mentally retarded children. Mentally retarded children are socially incompetent, that is, socially inadequate, and occupationally competent, unable to manage their own affairs. Second, mentally abnormal. So, na ubang mga bata, mga naslay daot sa kasing-kasing, abnormal ang ilahang mental mind. That so, third, retarded intellectually from birth early age. So, retarded at maturity, mentally deficient as a result of constitutional origin through heredity or disease, and six, essentially incurable. Now, let's move on to the general penalty. Violations of any provision of code of which no penalty is specifically provided shall be punished by imprisonment not exceeding 1 month or fine not exceeding or 200 prisons or both such fine and imprisonment of the discretion of the court unless higher penalty is provided for the revised penal code or special laws. Now let's move on to the custody. Is an aspect of parental authority. The person who exercises parental authority over the child has custody over said child. Parental authority and responsibility may not be renounced or transferred except in the case of authority by the law. The custody over illegitimate children. Children are those conceived or born outside valid marriage The rules of the relatively much simpler when it comes to custody and parental authority over legitimate children. So, custody over legitimate children. First, in general, parental authority, including custody over legitimate children, is shared by the father and mother. The family code provides that the father and mother shall join exercise parental authority over persons of their common children. Family code is about parental authority and guardianship. So, custody over minor children. So, as noted above, no child under 7 years of age shall be separated from the mother unless the court finds compelling reasons and otherwise. So, as as we nang mabalik na to, ang law dapat dili ubos sa 7 years old mapalayo ang usa ka bata sa iyang inahan. Okay. Yeah. In all controversies regarding the custody of minors, the sole and foremost consideration of physical education, social and moral welfare of the child concerning taking account of respective resources and social and moral situations for the contending parents. So, let's move on to the disagreement of the absence of parents. In case of disagreement, the father's decision shall prevail unless there is judicial order to the country. In case of absence of death, either parent to present of surviving parent present shall continue exercising parental authority. In case of death, absence, unsuitability of both parents, substitute parental authority shall be exercised by the surviving parent grandparent. In case several survive, the one designated by the court taking into account same consideration mentioned in the preceding article shall exercise the authority. So the suspension of parental authority. Parental authority is automatically suspended upon conviction of the parent of persons exercising the same of crime which with the penalty of civil interdiction the authority is automatically reinstated upon the service of the penalty or upon the pardon of amnesty of the offender. On the other hand, parental authority may be suspended by the court in appropriate case of where parent person who has parental authority first treats the child excessive harshness or cruelty. So, if their parents or lang family maka buhat ani, then there's a tendency that kanang mapriso ang ilang mga ginikanan. Kay dili mo na siya pwede bisan todo ginikanan ka but naman pod act for the child. So, give the children corrupting orders, counsel, or example. 3. Compels the child to beg. 4. And subjects the child allows to be subjected to acts of lasciviousness. So, termination of parental authority. Parental authority either or both parents may be terminated or suspended by the under of the court. The grounds for permanently terminating parental authority are death of parents, second, and death of the child. Third, emancipation of the child. Fourth, when a person exercising parental authority has subjected the child allowed him or her to be subjected to sexual abuse, such person shall be permanently deprived by the court such as authority. Custody and parental authority may also be terminated subject to revival by the court in proper case in any of the following instances. Upon adoption of the child, upon appointment of general guardian, upon judicial declaration of abandonment of the child in case of filed for the purpose, upon final judgment of the competent court divesting the party concerned of parental authority. Fifth, upon judicial declaration of absence of or incapacity of the person exercising parental authority. So, let's move on to the visitation rights of the father. So, visitation rights of the father law is the right granted by the court to parent or other relative who is deprived custody of the child to visit child on regular basis. So, visitation of rights of the father. So every father has the right to their family to um, visit the child in the custody. If ever ang bata na sa custody sa DSWD like that, so they have the right na muduaw ang mga father. So the details of visitation rights are determined by the court. In certain instances, as in case of violence against women and their children, the father is deprived of visitation rights. So now, let's move on to the death row. In implementing human rights situation in Philippines, not even worse this week as government began considering bills reinstate the death penalty. The move by House of Committee just came 2 weeks after President Rodrigo Duterte used his State of Nation address to call for capital punishment by lethal injection for drug offenders. For years, the Philippines put people to death, particularly in case of so-called heinous crimes, but President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, under pressure from the Catholic Church, abandoned the death penalty in 2006. Human Rights Watch opposes the death penalty in all circumstances because it is hereditary and cruel and irreversible. In 2007, the Philippines ratified the second optional protocol of the International Government of Civil and Political Rights, which requires countries to abolish the death penalty. Countries that are parties to the government and protocol cannot reinstate the death penalty without violating their obligations under international human rights law. Doing so will likely result of more than statements of concern from foreign trade partners such as the European Union. So, the Duterte's government overwhelming majority in Congress and continuing efforts to promote its campaign against illegal drugs means the Justice Committee is likely support death penalty bills. Duterte's war on drugs has resulted in deaths of more than 6,000 persons at hands of Philippine National Police, and thousands more are identifying gunmen. Accountability for these killings, including victimized children, practically non-existent. So, as President Rodrigo Roa Duterte became a president, so the crime rate of sa atuang Pilipinas is niubos, and then President Rodrigo Roa Duterte very hate the people who use drugs, who buy drugs, pusher, user, and also the drug lords. So, iyan na siyang ginabuhat para uh, stricto kay siya ana, and then if naay usa ka tawo na sige lang jud og gabaling-balik og droga kanang walay hunong bisag gi-warningan na gitukhang na mobalik ra gihapon, and then shoot to kill na siya. So munandagan jud kayo ang mga nas kamay ron sa mga kamot ron sa mga pulis, dagan kayo mga tawo nga gipamatay tungod sa mga drugs related issues. So munay istorya ni Rodrigo Duterte na yang walaon ang mga drug uh, person nga nadiri sa Pilipinas o iyang pamatyon if dili sila mo patuo nga muundang og gamit. Yeah. So, adopting the death penalty with spilling more blood in the name of the Duterte's drugs war, it will lead Philippines to descend further into rights violating abyss, and the government will lose credibility and average to negotiate on behalf of Philippines who face execution abroad. Along with the Philippines' withdrawal from the International Criminal Court in March 2019 and its human rights disinformation campaign or United Nations Human Rights Council, imposing the death penalty would only serve to further cement the country's growing reputation to international human rights pariah. So, katong ka Rodrigo Roa Duterte, daghan kay gaingon dito nga daghan daw kayo siyang mga human rights violation since yang pat yun ang mga nagamit laging drugs. But wala lagi po tayo mabuhat ana since nag-commit man sila og crime og nana man na siya sa logod. So if ikaw mismo panangitsal-an nakaayo ka, dili na jud lamang ka ubuhat og daotan ikabalo naman kag unsay result ana magunahuna ta kas pohon if unsay outcome if mogamay kag droga ron unsay itabo nimo pohon kay si Rodrigo Roa Duterte dili na moduduhag patay jud samot na sa mga drug lords mga pusher that. So akong ah sulti ni Rodrigo Roa Duterte even though mupatay siyang tao against na siya sa simbahan dili maayo sa simbahan ang mupatay kay tao ra pud siya but para nako murag mo ni siya ang way para ma-minimize um, ang criminality, mga drug kuan diri sa tuang lugar diri sa Pilipinas para minimize and then para pud lamang dili siging naipatay tungod sa drugs. So nalipay ra sabkos gibuhat ni Rodrigo Roa Duterte for the sake of the Filipino because he loves our the country. Yeah. So the end. Thank you so much for your attention and thank you so much for your listening. And this would be the end of my discussion. And have a nice day, everyone. And thank you for listening. And have a nice and great day. God bless everyone. Thank you. Bye bye.